All right, welcome back. I want to go over at least one of my favorite players from every single team. No jersey today because I'm lazy and I need more coffee in my system. But we're pretty much going alphabetical order: Pacific Division, Central Division, Metropolitan Division, finally the Atlantic Division. Starting off with the Ducks. Some of these teams will have two names. The second, and in some cases, the third name are honorable mentions. Ducks, it's Racco Gudis. I love Racco Gudis. I've loved him for years. I loved him on the Florida Panthers. He's an absolute leader in the Ducks organization, and to me, it was no surprise he got the captain. I think there was an argument to be made for other people to get the captaincy in Anaheim, but I absolutely love Gudis, what he brings to the table every game. Can play more of a shutdown defenseman role. I absolutely love Racco Gudis. I know he's terrorized my Bruins for a bit, but man, dude, I absolutely love him. Honorable mention to Leo Carlson. I absolutely love his game. He's fun to watch. Kid's got a lot of skill. He's got a lot of drive, a lot of passion for the game. I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch for a lot of years to come. I'm a big fan of watching Leo Carlson play. Next up, the Flames. It's Rasmus Anderson. I love his defensive game. I'm a sucker for a good defensive defenseman. Anderson is that, and he's he's underrated at this point, I think. At least living on the East Coast, you really don't hear about Rasmus Anderson at all, but he's fun to watch, and he's pretty damn good at his job. Next up is the Oilers. I have Matthias Ekholm. This is kind of a tough one because there are other names you could throw out there, like Connor McDavid, obviously. Always really fun to watch. He always has my eyes. My eyes are always glued to Connor McDavid when he's on the ice. But I love Matthias Ekholm. Again, I have going back to his Nashville days. One of those shutdown, responsible defensive defensemen that can generate a little bit of offense as well. I think it's a huge pickup for the Oilers when they got him. Big fan of Matthias Ekholm. Moving on to the Kings, it's Darcy Kemper, and I know it's kind of an obscure pick. I've been following Darcy Kemper since before he made it to the NHL, from Minnesota to Arizona, Colorado, Washington. He's had quite a journey, and he can be up and down, but I enjoy watching him. He's fun to watch. It's just one of my favorite players, and I'm glad his career panned out to what it is. Because at first there was a lot of hesitancy, but I love Darcy Kemper, and I'm always rooting for him. Sharks, it's Mikael Granlund. Love Mikael Granlund. Again, same with Darcy Kemper. I've kind of followed him his whole career. Started in Minnesota, got traded for, was it Kevin Fiala to Nashville. Now he's in San Jose doing his thing, and I like him. He's a solid 200-foot centerman. Can kind of play up and down the lineup, first line center to third line center. Very versatile player, always smiling, has a great positive attitude, and dude is a sneaky good playmaker. He can dish the puck like no other. I love watching Mikael Granlund. He's fun. Kraken was a little more difficult, but I do have Matty Beniers, and I know he's kind of having a bounce back season, but not the bounce back season you want. Again, solid 200-foot centerman. He's a player who will continue to grow his game as well. Plus, he has that Boston connection. Same with Joey Decord, the goaltender. Decord's also a lot of fun to watch. Kind of an honorable mention in there. I think both of these players are entertaining. And if you're watching Beniers, not just when he has the puck, but when he doesn't have the puck, he's doing all the little things right, and he's grown his game defensively and away from the puck quite a bit the past couple of years. It's impressive. This kid just needs to put the puck in the net more, get a few more assists, and he's going to be a solid player. Canucks, I have Dakota Joshua. I love Dakota Joshua in his game. I think he had a breakout season last year, which was fantastic. I know he's been on the IR this year. So I do have an honorable mention, and that's JT Miller. And he's a guy I hate playing against. But the dude has a lot of passion, and he's really skilled, and he's got a hell of a shot. So it's hard to root against a guy that cares so much. And I know he's a very polarizing figure. But yeah, it's one of those things where you can see the passion, you can see the love for the game in his eyes, you can see his will to win, and he pulls out wins for his team regardless of where he's playing. Yeah, I can't hate on JT Miller as much as I want to. He's still, it's one of those players you have to respect and admire. Um, I do love Dakota Joshua though. He is my favorite player on the Canucks, and he'd be my favorite player on a lot of other teams as well. Um, Knights, it's Zach Whitecloud, solid third pairing defenseman. Knows his role, is typically defensively responsible. He's quicker than you would assume he is. Can step up into a top four role. Yeah, this is just a player I've always liked to watch. He's always doing something away from the puck that kind of makes my eyes get big, and it's like, wow, that was impressive. So I don't know. I like him a lot. I don't know. He's just one of those fun players to watch. I enjoy his game. Hawks, it's Alex Vlasic. This is one of those, again, like it was an eyebrow raiser when this deal was signed for people that didn't really watch the Blackhawks. Um, this guy is defensively responsible and can chip in offense as well. He's very young. He's got a very bright future ahead. I really love his game. And again, one of those players that's just fun to watch. There are a few other players you can throw up there. Like I love watching Nick Foligno. I think he's a blast. Connor Bedard's always fun. He's got a great shot. His defensive game is slightly growing, so that's encouraging. There's still a lot of work with Bedard in defense, but he's what 19. There's plenty of time to work on that, especially on a team that's not supposed to be competitive this year. But I absolutely love Vlasic in his game. Moving on to the Avalanche, it's Arturi Lehkonen. He, he's a difference maker when he's in the lineup, and yeah, I don't know. He's fun to watch, especially in the offensive zone. He's been working on his defensive game since his days in Montreal, and it's improved quite a bit. It's had to in Colorado, but he's one of those players. Again, I just love to watch. He's fun. I may not root for him or the team, but at the same time, I'm a Bruins fan. I don't root for a lot of these guys on the board when they're playing my teams, but if they're not, yeah, why not? They're fun to watch. Honorable mention, Ivan. kid came into the lineup and is fast and works hard and just one of those fun to watch guys. I've had a blast watching him play this year. He's not putting up points every game, but he's actually producing more than you would expect, which is fantastic to see. He's a fun kid to watch. If you haven't watched an Avalanche game, check it out just to see Ivan play. He's a fun kid to watch. Moving on to the Stars. There's a lot of guys on the Stars, but it's got to be Jason Robertson. This is a guy that can score 40 goals and he plays a very solid 200-foot game. It's fun to see this dude get into the gritty areas. It's fun to see him get back and play pretty solid defense. He's an all-around player, and he's just, again, you're going to see a common theme. He's a fun player to watch. With and without the puck, he's a very good player. There's a lot of players you could say on Dallas that are fun to watch, and I am most certainly not a Dallas fan. This goes back to my Bruins Dallas Stars days in 2008, 2009 when the Stars had Sean Avery and Steve Ott, and still, little not a big fan of the Stars, but it's a fun team to. If you haven't caught a Stars game, they are a lot of fun to watch. There's a lot of great pieces, a lot of different players you can watch. But I have Jason Robertson. He seems to always kind of have me following him around the ice, regardless of who else is playing. So next up is the Wild. It's Jonas Brodin. Dude is an absolute shutdown defenseman. He is so good. He has been so good for so long. He's very steady. He can play with really anybody on that defense, in the defense system that Minnesota has, and not look out of place. He's such a good player, such one of the best defensive defensemen I've seen in my lifetime. I don't think that's an exaggeration, and I know if you don't watch him on a nightly basis, then you might have some hesitancy about that, and I get that. But I absolutely love Jonas Brodin and what he brings. Couple honorable mentions. kind of tied. Marco Rossi, again, one of those young guys came in, had some COVID issues, plays a solid 200-foot game, solid playmaker passer, is taking shots, doesn't look out of place on a first line with Kirill Kaprizov. I love Marco Rossi. I love his game, and he's just a happy guy, and he's willing to mix it up as a short guy. He's like 5'9" or something. He's throwing jabs at guys that are over 6 feet, and it's fun to watch. The other honorable mention is Murat Hustadinov. See, I finally found out how to say his name, Hustadinov. He's also fun to watch. I think he's kind of been buried on that fourth line in Minnesota. But he's a guy with speed. He's a guy with good defensive play. He's a good playmaker. I think he's one of those guys that would excel in a top six role with guys that can kind of keep up with Hustadinov's speed. We haven't quite seen that so far this year. We saw a little bit of it last year, but I absolutely love this dude's game. I think he's got a bright future, and I hope he gets a chance to move a little higher up in the lineup sometime throughout this year. Moving on to the Predators, it's Jeremy Lauzon. Again, I'm a Bruins fan. I've been following Lauzon for years now. He's a solid third-pairing defensive defenseman who will be physical and mix it up and give your team a jolt if you need him to. I love Lauzon. I've loved him anywhere he's been, including Boston. And, I don't know. Again, Predators, there's a lot of people you can take from the Predators that are always fun to watch, but Lauzon's my boy. Moving on to the Blues. No surprise here. It's Hofer. I've loved Hofer. Such a great guy. He's such a bright future. Solid goaltender. It's one of those. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he takes that starting job from Binnington, at least in my eyes. And Binnington has ups and he has downs. But Hofer seems to be, for the most part, pretty steady. Any goaltender has ups and downs, but Hofer seems to be a little less of a roller coaster than other goaltenders. I don't know. Just one of those players I've always been excited to see in net, and he's fun to watch. I absolutely love Hofer. Can't say enough good things about him. Utah was a little tougher for me. I don't really dislike anyone on that team, but love to watch. Kind of tough. I have Alex Kerfoot up here. He's been fun to watch. He's been playing responsible 200-foot hockey, which is something this Utah club needs from their forward groups, and he's done it well, and I think he's leading by example in that category in Utah. It's Alex Kerfoot. You know what you're going to get with him, but I think just him on that forecheck and playing responsible defense it's enjoyable to watch. Honorable mention is Matias Maccelli. This kid is good. Having a bit of a down year, I guess. I don't know. It's tough to say. It's still early. His point production's pretty solid. This kid's good. He's fun to watch. He can put the puck in the net. He can do a little deke here and there. He's a good kid. I'm excited. Contrary to what I just said, I enjoy watching Utah hockey team or hockey club. I enjoy watching Utah play quite a bit. It's a fun team to watch, and it's a team, which is really nice to see, rather than individual players trying to pad their stats per se. Utah's a lot of fun to watch as well. Jets, it's got to be Connor Hellebuck. Went to college with him, got to see him play at the collegiate level in the NCAA. Every single game he played until I graduated. I think I graduated before him. And he's just a fun goaltender to watch. He's been one of my favorite players since before he broke into the NHL. He was a 5th round draft pick and really started to light it up at the collegiate level. And it was just fun to kind of see his evolution and for his evolution to grow in Winnipeg. Yeah, Connor Hellebuck is one of my all-time favorite players. Where are we? We're at the Jets, but where? Oh no. Am I losing my mind? Oh, right here. Oh, I need more coffee. Honorable mention to Nino Niederreiter. Kind of a power forward, tough physical, likes to mix it up here and there. Got a nice shot, can put the puck in the net, can give you about 20 goals a year. again, one of those guys I've been following for his whole career. Started off in Minnesota years ago. Just a fun guy to watch. I have, you know, he may do questionable things at times, but I have nothing bad to say about Nino Niederreiter. He is one of my favorite players, and it's fun to see him play a different role on any given night. Next up is the Hurricanes. It's Jalen Chatfield. What a story. Kid comes from Vancouver, finds a home on that third pairing defense in Carolina, and really grows his game substantially. He's a solid shutdown defenseman at this point. We're seeing him moved up and down the lineup a bit. Still kind of one of those third pairing guys, but yeah, Chatfield he's a fun guy to watch. I just enjoyed. It's been a pleasure absolutely watching his career grow and him as a player. He's a fun player. Honorable mention though to Sebastian Aho. Aho's right there with him. Solid 200-foot centerman, can put the puck in the net. Solid defensively. Just a fun player to watch, and he can shock you with his speed on the breakaways, because you don't usually expect that from solid defensive centermen. You know, that speed typically isn't there with a lot of them. Aho is one who can show the speed. Aho's great. Blue Jackets, it's kind of a tough team. It would have been Johnny Gaudreau. Unfortunately, he's such an impactful and great player, and he has that Boston connection. He went to BC, and he's from New Jersey, and Johnny Gaudreau for sure. But I guess my honorable mention would be David Urachek. This is a kid who was a high draft pick and seems to be buried in the AHL a bit, at least last year. And this is a kid that is a big, fairly solid defensive defenseman that can put up points. Supposed to be a two-way defenseman. Personally, I'd like to see him continue to work on that defensive aspect, and then the points will come because he can produce offense for sure. This is a guy I've enjoyed watching his development so far, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. I enjoy watching him when he's on the ice. Absolutely. Moving on to the Devils, Eric Haula, one of those other guys who I followed around his entire career, team to team. I love Eric Haula. I love his game. I love his ability. He's fun to watch. He's one of those guys that can be a second line center if you need him to, can be a fourth line winger if you need him to, can move up and down the lineup. If you need him to play a more defensive role, he can absolutely do that. If you need him to step up offensively, he can absolutely do that as well. Very versatile, works hard. I have nothing bad to say about Eric Haula. Curtis Lazar, honorable mention. Just fourth line grinder guy, can provide a little bit of offense, can provide some defense, can mix it up, get a little gritty when you need him to. He's also one of those fun players to watch. I've always enjoyed watching Curtis Lazar going back to his Buffalo days, right? So that's where he started. Moving on to the Islanders, it's Brock Nelson. Nobody plays Islander hockey better than Brock Nelson, at least in my eyes. Solid 200-foot player, very good defensively, got a great shot, puts the puck in the net, can get into those dirty areas. Brock Nelson, he's a very good player. I wouldn't, if he goes to another team for whatever reason, and I kind of hope he retires as an Islander player. But should he be on another team, I think you'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see his stats take a big leap. He's a very good player in the offensive zone, but plays a lot of defense for a defensively oriented Islanders team, which is fine. But he's a good defenseman. He's a good forward that plays defense, to clarify. Moving on to the New York Rangers, Ryan Lindgren. Charlie Lindgren is his brother in Washington, who is a goaltender. Ryan Lindgren is a defenseman. Dude is just an absolute tank, solid defensive defenseman. I love his mustache. He gets physical. He gets gritty. He's very good at his job, and he's an absolute tank on that blue line. Love Ryan Lindgren. Always have. Tough to play against, but just a fun guy. I love the aura he gives off. Next up is Vinny Trocheck, honorable mention for the Rangers. Just one of those guys who, where did he come out of? He was in Florida and then Carolina, and then he hit free agency, I believe. and the Rangers signed him, and I was on board with the Vinny Trocheck train coming to Boston, but the Rangers signed him, and a lot of people said it was an overpay contract at the time. This dude has exceeded his current contract, at least in my eyes. Solid 200-foot player. Again, repeating myself, put the puck in the net, can be a little gritty. Vinny Trocheck is the complete package and a solid second line center in this league. I think he's one of the better second line centers in my opinion, but obviously that is subjective. Moving on to the Flyers, Matej Michkov, a lot of fun to watch. Just a breath of fresh air for Philadelphia. Excuse me. Does need to work on his defensive game? Sure. That was known before he came over to America. That was always kind of an issue in the KHL is his defensive game isn't quite where it needs to be, but his offensive game is so good you can overlook that, and he's come as advertised. He is an absolute blast to watch. Honorable mention to Nick Delorier. I'm a sucker for those kind of old school enforcer, gritty guys. Delorier is a guy that can penalty kill. He can play solid defensive hockey. He can throw hits, invigorate a team. He can fight. And every now and then he'll put the puck in the net. He's got softer hands than you would expect a fourth line enforcer type guy to have. So he's a fun guy to watch. He's good for the locker room. He's a good locker room guy. He's a great human being as well. He does a lot of stuff off the ice for communities, and he's just one of those lovable guys. And you hate playing against him because he might, take a run at one of your star players. But at the same time, it's just, I don't know. I love the guy. He's like a big teddy bear that can throw punches. Weird statement. Moving on to the Penguins. It's Noel Acciari. The dude just works hard every single shift. He has for his whole career, and he's got 20-goal upside, and it depends on what role you want him to play. He's got a decent shot. He can play make. He can get into those dirty corner, gritty areas. He can play defense. He's one of those versatile players that can move up-ish and down the lineup. I don't know if I'd have him in a top six role, but definitely a solid bottom six guy. I've seen him play in the top six role, but at the same time, I'm more of a bottom six guy, but love his game. Capitals, John Carlson. I think at this point in his career, it might be safe to say he's back to being underrated. He's a solid defensive defenseman, very good in his own zone, and at the same time is able to put up points and provide offense at an incredible rate. Very much a 200-foot defenseman, very much reminiscent of a Victor Hedman per se. Yeah, John Carlson is fun to watch, and I think at this point, because he's getting older and the Caps' relevance has kind of fallen out a little bit, I think he could be a bit underrated, but he is an absolute pleasure to watch. Honorable mention to Brandon Duhaime, one of those fourth-line wingers who can kind of just fly up the ice. He's got speed. He's solid defensively, can throw checks, throw the body around, can drop the gloves when you need him to. He's one of those guys that provides a spark to your team when you need it. He comes in, he's all business, all serious face, but he's an impactful player and one of those guys. Doesn't get a lot of ice time, but when he's on the ice, a lot of fun to watch. Moving on to the Bruins, it's Nikita Zadorov at this point. He's a solid defensive defenseman, plays very good defense, at least he has in Boston. Can provide a little bit of offense, right? But he's mostly there for his defense, for his physicality. And he's provided a lot of big hits. He's tried to lead by example on the ice by holding opposing teams who take runs on the Bruins star players accountable. And a lot of people don't want to fight Zadorov because he's just a massive dude, right? But at least he tries. He sticks up for his teammates. He's a very team-oriented guy, and you'll love to see that. Honorable mention to Brandon Carlo, who I think continues to get better every single year. This dude is... This dude just continues to grow his defensive game. He's, in my opinion, he is the best defensive defenseman on a Boston Bruins team, which prides itself on defense. That should hopefully say a lot. He's had an absolute incredible season so far. Speaking of defense and pretty much everything I just said about Zadorov, when you go down to the Wild, that's also applicable to a guy like Joel Eriksson Ek. kind of a mixture of Zadorov and Carlo. His game gets better every year. Solid defensive, 200-foot center, gritty, gets into the areas, right? I just want to throw another honorable mention to the Minnesota Wild, I guess. Moving on to the Sabres. Sabres were kind of tough, kind of like Utah. It's not like I'm in love with any one of the players, but I don't like hate any of their players at all. And I know there's a case you can make for a lot of the players, but at the same time, I think my favorite player to watch on the Buffalo Sabres is Owen Power. This is a dude that can put the puck in the net, can provide some offense, but also is I think underrated. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really read anything on Owen Power this year, but can play pretty solid defense. I don't think that should be overlooked or slept on. He's a solid 200-foot defenseman, and he's very young. There's going to be some growth in his game. We saw some of those struggles last year, and we've seen a few of those struggles this year as well, but he's a guy that will continue to grow and get better. He's going to be a solid two-way defenseman in the league, and one of the better ones, if that. So he's fun to watch. I love to watch him grow. Red Wings, Simon Edvinsson. He probably should have gotten a look, a little more. Whoop. Sorry, that was my alarm. A little more of a look going into next year, right? Or going into should have gotten more of a look last year before this year. I think he got a look last year, a couple looks, but I don't know. But this year he looks good. He's providing some offense, but he's looks good defensively as well, and that's something this Red Wings team really needs is someone solid on that blue line who can play defense. They have some options, but it's a big question mark in my eyes is the Red Wings defense, and I think Edvinsson helps kind of solve some of that issue. He's been fun to watch so far this year. I recommend, Berggren as well on the Red Wings has been fun to watch. There's a lot of young guys in the Wings organization that are coming up or already there. Maurice Seider's always fun to watch, right? One of those guys that can throw the body around. There's a few of them up in Detroit. Florida Panthers, it's Nico Mikkola, just one of those physical shutdown defensemen, and there are some defensive flaws in his game, sure, and there have been going back to his days in St. Louis, but Mikkola he's just one of those guys that works hard. He clearly cares about his play and the team's result. You can see it in his face. I just enjoy watching Mikkola. I don't have much to say. He's been one of those players I've enjoyed following his career. Mikkola, I like him. I like him a lot. Moving on to the Canadiens, it's got to be Nick Suzuki. I hate this comparison. He's kind of like the Canadiens' version of Patrice Bergeron on a lesser scale. He doesn't put up the points that Patrice Bergeron puts up. He doesn't have the defensive play that Patrice Bergeron had, but he's just a very respectful centerman, captain, leader, and plays a solid 200-foot game as well. He's a good dude. He's a fun player to watch, and man, I do not like the Canadiens, but I can't throw any hate at Suzuki. I am intrigued with the little spars that Jeremy Swayman, the Bruins goaltender, and Nick Suzuki have. Those are kind of fun to watch, I guess. We'll see if anything comes of that. Honorable mention, though, to Sam Montembeault, the goaltender for the Canadiens. Absolutely fantastic, dude. He works hard. He's playing in front of kind of a rough team defensively, and he'll step up and make some incredible saves, and I think he often gets exposed. His stats aren't quite where they probably would be on a more competitive team, or at least a more defensively responsible team. But at the same time, I love Sam Montembeault. I don't know if he's still considered underrated, but I think he's still a very, very solid goaltender, and I think it was a great signing to keep him around, honestly. Senators, it's Linus Ullmark. I'm a Bruins fan. Ullmark's a lot of fun to watch. He has a couple corgis. I got a corgi who's right here, just chilling out, getting upset at the alarm that goes off in the background. Ullmark, just a genuinely nice human being, right? And one of those goaltenders that's fun to watch. Oftentimes he'll let in that first goal and it looks kind of soft, and then he's absolutely lights out for the rest of the game. He's such a good dude, such a fun dude to watch. Honorable mention to Zub, solid defensive defenseman. I just enjoy watching Zub. He's a good defenseman. Moving on to the Lightning. We're almost done. I know this is like 30 minutes now, but Michael Chafee, just one of those nice stories. Was kind of buried in that Minnesota Wild's AHL organization, playing a lot of time in Iowa, the Iowa Wild, and looked very good in Iowa. He had very good stats. Became an unrestricted free agent. I don't quite remember how. I think maybe because, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Went off to sign a contract with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Wild did not re-sign him. And has found a home in the Tampa Bay lineup on a nightly basis and looks solid. Doesn't look out of place. It's just one of those nice stories you love to see. A player it's not necessarily working out in a particular organization, gets an opportunity elsewhere and takes full advantage of it. And that's what Michael Chafee's done. Yeah, it's exciting. Couple of honorable mentions. Nikita Kucherov is always a blast to watch. He is so good. And, you know, you can say that about McKinnon. You can say that about McDavid. You can say that about Kaprizov, right? Kucherov is just, you know, it's one of those must-watch TV type of players. So can't hate on Kucherov. Brendan Hagel as well. One of those guys who is just absolutely fantastic to watch. Very, very solid player. Couple of honorable mentions there. The Leafs, it's Nick Robertson. I think this dude has a lot of potential. He looks good. He has a pretty solid shot. I don't think the Leafs organization necessarily fits Robertson's style of play, which is okay. That happens more frequently than you would think. But I think Nick Robertson has a bright future. You know, and I guess honorable mention to Matthew Knies as well. Matthew Knies should end up staying in Toronto. He can provide a physical presence. He's got a pretty solid shot. Yeah, you know, Knies is a guy. I can see both of these guys, Robertson and Knies, panning out. Whether it's with the Leafs or not, you know, I like them both, but I give the nod to Robertson. I like his game a little more. I think he's a little more underrated, and he's a guy I'm always watching whenever he's on the ice. But Nick Robertson, we don't know if he's going to stay in Toronto. There's been the trade rumors and the requesting of trades, and I don't know. I'm not that deep into Maple Leafs lore, but in any case, should Robertson be gone, it's Wall. I love Wall so much. I'm a Bruins fan, and man, it's it's tough playing against Wall, but this dude, when he comes into the NHL roster, he always looks so good in net. He's had a lot of injury issues, and it extends to this year as well. And Stolar's kind of taken over that number one role, and Stolar's has looked fantastic, right? But I don't know. There's something about Wall that, you know, even if my Bruins are playing the Maple Leafs, and I'm always rooting against the Maple Leafs when they're playing the Bruins because I'm a Bruins fan. There's a little part of me that still roots for Wall to do well, and I don't know. He's a fun player to watch. He's a very solid player. He just needs to stay healthy and stay in the lineup. And I have nothing bad to say about Wall. So those are my favorite players, one from each team. And there's there's other players I absolutely love that are not on this board because of space, right? You know, another one is Nathan McKinnon. He's a blast to watch. Draisaitl is fun to watch as well. He takes weird angle shots. You know, Kirill Kaprizov of the Wild, absolute beast of a 200-foot winger who's putting up points at nobody's rate or at a crazy rate. There's a ton of guys, right? You know, Lafreniere of the Rangers, I think, has been a lot of fun to watch the past few years. I'm glad he's finally popping off and looking good. Miro Heiskanen of the Stars is a stud. You got Wyatt Johnson, who's an absolute blast to watch in Dallas. There's a lot of guys that are on the board that I haven't named, but I could only pick one from each team. There's only so much space on the board, so here we are, one player from each team. That's all I got. I appreciate you. Let me know if you have a favorite player that is not on this board, or if you have comments or questions, and this is just a fun video, so I appreciate you. Take care, all right?